A few days ago, I saw an old video of the visit of the Russian President Vladimir Putin to Pope Francis in the Vatican City in Rome. Dumalaw pala siya. And it is reported to have taken place noong July 4, 2019. Well, at some point during the encounter between the President of Russia and Pope Francis, President Putin presented a gift to Pope Francis. It was a beautiful Russian Orthodox icon of the Blessed Mother with the child Jesus in her arms. Binigay ng Russian President yung icon kay Pope Francis at sinabi niyang, "This is my gift for you." Sabi naman ni Pope Francis, "Thank you." And then, as the Pope was looking at the icon, President Putin asked him, "Do you like it?" And the Pope said, "Yes, it's beautiful." Then, President Putin did something that I think surprised even the Holy Father, Pope Francis. Yumuko ang presidente at hinalikan niya yung icon. Right on that spot of the child Jesus in the arms of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Well, before that, I had just watched an earlier video of President Putin already at war with Ukraine and threatening the NATO countries and the Western countries na wag daw mag-i-involve sa conflict na ito with Ukraine, otherwise they will suffer the consequences. I had just watched terrifying, horrifying scenes of Russian soldiers following the orders of President Putin to bomb Ukrainian cities, causing so much destruction, so many deaths, and the displacement of millions of refugees. At balita ko, he continues to enjoy the blessing of the Russian Orthodox Christian Patriarch, nevertheless. Well, habang pinapanood ko yung video, I found myself focusing my attention on the lips of President Putin. The lips of this leader asserting his power over another country. They were the same lips that had just kissed the icon of the Madonna and child. Well, today's readings are very strong words of denunciation uttered by the lips of two prophets against the secular and religious leaders of their own times, respectively. The first is an oracle of judgment uttered by the lips of the prophet Isaiah, who denounces the secular leaders of Judah during his time, but he addresses them, by the way, as the princes of Sodom and the people of Gomorrah. Sodom and Gomorrah, ano bang naalala ninyo? We often think of Sodom and Gomorrah as places that had been punished in earlier biblical times, supposedly for sexual immoralities. But it does not seem to be the case in our first reading. The prophet does not seem to share in that tradition. All the accusations that he hurls against Sodom and Gomorrah have to do with social injustice. The prophet says, "Stop doing evil learn to do good, make justice your aim, redress the wronged, hear the orphans' plea, defend the widows. Sa Ebanghelyo naman, Jesus is denouncing the religious leaders, the Pharisees, and the scribes for what he regards as a disconnect between their expressions of faith, religiosity, and piety on the one hand, and their behavior in society. Ay nako, Jesus says quite a mouthful against them. He mentions how they tie up heavy burdens, hard to carry, and lay them on people's shoulders, but they would not lift a finger to help them or to move them. These leaders are the same people who are so strict and so meticulous about fulfilling their religious obligations, and who think that it is their strict observance of religious acts of piety that makes them more holy, more righteous in the sight of God. Well, Jesus is summarizing his series of denunciations with an exhortation that says, "The greatest among you must be your servant. Whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted." And in the first reading, si Isaiah naman, he is concluding his own oracle with a more threatening in a more threatening way. Sabi ni Isaiah, "If you refuse and resist, the sword shall consume you." He announced this prophetic oracle of doom on the kind of leaders who kiss religious icons with their lips, but utter with the same lips words that cause so much violence and destruction, so much suffering and death on their fellow human beings. Words that, in effect, blaspheme God, who made human beings in his image and likeness. The prophet's final words of warning to these arrogant power wielders is the scary, threatening line, "The sword shall consume you. The sword shall consume you." Hindi ba interesting yon? Words, sword. Wow. Words, sword. Don't you find it interesting that if you move the last letter of words to take the first letter, it becomes sword. Words, sword. Meaning, he who blasphemes God's words will fall by the sword.